Well, hello, hello, hello. You beautiful people, you. Oh my god. Uh, this is Bao, and welcome to another chess improvement video. And today, we'll be doing some maiden ones. We're not doing the 10 pins today. Let's do some maiden ones. So we'll go to our personal. Here's maiden ones. And, yeah. Let's just have some fun. We're here to have some fun today. Let's do some maiden ones. This looks like I can just take the queen for a maiden one. Yep, that's it. Uh, let's warm up with some maiden ones, and then I think we'll move to maiden twos. I think that'll be something interesting to do. Let's see here. In this position, we are some color. We're white. And it looks like Queen D8 is the maiden one we're looking for. With the maiden ones, there's not a lot that I'm going to be explaining, really. I feel like I've done enough maiden ones to kind of just know most of the patterns. Sometimes there are tricky situations, but it's fairly rare. But yeah, I feel like I would be doing a disservice if I didn't explain something. So let's try to slow my brain down a little here, and then we can see what's going on. That being said, what the fuck am I doing in this one? So let's do some explaining. We are black. Our knight on f3 is guarding the g1 and the e1 square, so the king does not have a lot of flight squares. His only flight square would be g2 if anything were to happen. However, when my queen takes on h3, that flight square is taken away. There's nothing that can take my queen. And so the king has nowhere to go, and thus he is attacked and he is mated. Sweet sauce. Okay, well, this is a fairly simple back rank mate. If this was white's turn again right now, I would be in a dearly Christ shit ton of trouble. But seeing as how it's black's turn and that rook is not guarded, we can just take, and the king has no place to go. How many have we done? I said we'd do 5. I feel like I've already done too many. This is a common mating pattern, or mating whatever the hell, where the queen just hugs the king to death on the back rank. If there were going to be any flight squares, it would have to be e9 and g9, but those don't exist. Ooh, I'm trying to move the opponent's queen, and there's nowhere to go. 7 out of 7. Okay, let's go to 10, and then we'll go to maiden twos. Because as much as I love maiden ones, I don't think I am really challenging myself very much by doing these. That, however, maybe some could argue that perhaps even with something as easy as this, at this point, it's not about how easy and simple it is. It's more about how many that I do until it's just ingrained into my brain. Blah, 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 blah. So if that's the case, I mean, we could do like 100 maiden ones or something crazy like that. But I don't know. We could go either way. I'm on the fence right now. I'm on the fence. I'm just doing these maiden ones, and I've gone to 10, and I'm not explaining anything. Look at me. I'm so cool. I can do maiden ones. Let's take a vote from the Twitch chat. Oh, this isn't Twitch. I'm not streaming. Oh my. Then what are we supposed to do? I guess we can just keep on doing maiden ones? Is this good for me? I don't know. Am I developing quicker because of it? I don't know. I just keep doing these. It's like candy. You just keep on eating it and you can't stop. These are like crackers and cheese or delicious tea. I don't know. I don't know what to do with my life. Oh, this is an interesting one. This seems a little bit more challenging. Let's take a look at this. How do we mate in one this king right now? So all of the 8th row, or the rank, I'm sorry. I've been saying row a lot, and that's just wrong. That's just plainly wrong. Because of the queen, the 8th row was taken. The d8 square was defended twice by my queen and my rook, so I was able to utilize that. And I've tried to explain this mating pattern to you all before in video 2 or whatever. This is video 11, by the way. Yay me. Where it's like an arrow or a triangle with the tip. Forget it. Basically, he has no diagonal spots to run away to, and that's what happened there. And in this situation, this is like the same pattern except rotated, and similar to when the king is with on the edge of the board and the queen hugs him to death. The e5 and the g5 squares are his only flight squares, and they're not possible. So he's dead. What are we on? I don't even know. Same kind of pattern as before. Queen touches the king, and the king, I don't know, concedes. We've got this puzzle before. Too easy. Should really take a second to see how many we've done. Oh, I got it wrong. Bad bow. Bad bow. This does not work because of the knight on h5, but this works. I was halfway wrong. I forced myself too much. So we got to 18 out of 19. That's pretty good, especially with me half joking around being a complete idiot slash douchebag. So props to me. Let's do some maiden twos. I still don't know how to change my puzzle sets from within this UX. So that's good. Question, do we want to do maiden twos or maiden 1 and 2s? I think for now we'll just stick to something semi-challenging, a little bit more difficult than the maiden ones. Let's do maiden 2s only. Now we get a little bit of time to look at the board and calculate some potentials that may happen. We are black in this scenario. The king has decided the best place that he can go is into the 3rd rank for him. Couple of things that I see. I see 2 potential candidate rook moves, e2, as well as f3. Let's see what the possibilities are if that happens. Rook to e2, in which case the only place that he can fly to would be f4, at which point we could move the rook over to f5 for another sweet check, defended by the bishop, so that's pretty awesome. But at which point the king can just run away and take my g4 pawn. So that's 2 moves. That ain't a mate, so we don't want to do that. So let's take a look at the second possibility, which would be rook to f3. Now the f file is still guarded by us. The king only has one place he can move to, and that would be d2. However, there is no continuing line with this other rook at that point. We would just have to move our rook back up if we wanted to keep up the tempo, and that's not going to help us. So that doesn't look good either. So what can we do? What can we do? Maybe we miscalculated the line with rook e2 check? Rook e2 check. Flight square f4 for the king. That is not defended. Oh, actually, instead of trying to move this rook into play, from e2, why not move our rook to e4, which will defend our pawn here, take away the king's flight square to f3, and thus it is a checkmate. Neat! We calculated. Yay! Yay! If you guys are very annoyed by the way I'm talking today, leave a comment, and I won't read it because I'm a terrible person. So there's that. Okay, in this situation, we are white. The king is on the 8th rank. Candidate moves that I see, queen to d8 or queen to h8. Where does that leave the king? Let's start with d8, because that looks more fun, I guess. If we go d8, the king can move to g7. I'm sorry, I just had like a, what do you call that? Just some kind of brain lapse, I guess. I don't know. So queen d8, king's only flight square would be g7, and then I have no real good moves after that for a mate in 2. So let's go h8, in which case the king would have to go to e7, at which point I could move back to f7, but that's repeating, so that's no good. And I realized, yeah, I can just go to f6 for the other one as well, but both of those are just repeating. It doesn't help us. No good. Not good. Here's another one. A potential candidate move. What about knight to h7 check? Only 2 places that the king can go from there is g8 and e8. So knight to h7, king. Let's say he goes to g8. Where does that leave us? Nowhere great. I don't see any particular way to combine the power of the knight and the queen at this point to make the king suffer. So if king g8 just blocks us, then knight h7 ain't that good either. Well, that's all of the moves that I have. That's pretty much it. Oh, just kidding. We have one more move that we didn't look at. Knight takes e6, and this is one that I should have seen. I should have seen, because we've been doing pins. King is pinned with the pawn to, or let me rephrase that. The pawn on f7 is pinned because of my queen to his king. Would be the right terminology to use for this situation. And so we can use the knight to take the pawn on e6 with a check. Then the king would still have the 2 places that he can go to, but it's different now because if he moves to g8, that would be a checkmate. And if he goes to e8, doesn't look like a checkmate. What the fuck do I do? Oh, I can checkmate by going to d8. Awesome. Okay. That took me a second, but I got it. Whew. That was slightly embarrassing and dumb all at the same time. Cool. Let's see. We're black in this position. The candidate moves that I see is queen to h2 with a check, at which point the king has only one place to go, which would be f1, at which point I could move my queen up one more rank, and he has no more flight squares. That's a fairly simple one. Pushing him away while drawing him closer. That's a love tip for all of you boys and girls for Valentine's Day. I hope you really enjoyed that. I'm so lonely. No, I'm just half a human being. In this puzzle, we can move the rook to h8, and then the king has no flight squares because of this nasty little knight defending the d7 square. So the only move he has is to move his rook down to g8 again to block, at which point we'll take, and it'll be delicious. And we'll get a checkmate. So there we go. Okay. Let's see what we have here. In this puzzle, we have two major pieces. How do we use them in coordination to make this king sad? What would be ideal would be, I don't know about ideal. Let's just kind of work through it. So, rook to h6 looks pretty delicious. Where does that leave the king to go? He only has g7 to go. No way to destroy this rook. So when the king goes to wow, brain fart, g7, then we can move our queen to h7, and then the king will have run out of flight squares. Whop. Well, that's a pretty little mate there. Okay, I think we've done 5. Let's get to 20, because we like 20. This back rank looks pretty shifty. First thing I see would be like queen to f2 check. The king would have only one flight square, d1. The question is, where do we take it from here? And I guess where we would take it would be with a knight. We would move it to e3, which would attack both the d1 square and the c2 square, the king's only flight square. No way to get rid of that knight. It looks pretty dangerous. There we go. And 6 out of 6. It's going pretty good. And I'll be honest with you guys, these are going fairly well, but they're not as quick as the maiden ones. Definitely not. So I'm happy about doing these maiden 2s because I definitely think I can improve a bit more. So yeah, I think doing 20 maiden 2s tonight will be some good exercise. With that out of the way, let's take a look at this board. Queen, the enemy queen, is on a8. That knight's not going to last very long if we don't mate the king. So the question is, how do we force moves to mate him without giving white the tempo to bugger our plans? Well, we got a lot of major pieces over here. The question is, how do we use them properly? Maybe with a rucksack? Issue with the rucksack is it can be taken by the king or the rook. That leaves a lot of possibilities, and I don't think it's the rucksack. Most definitely not. If that's the case, what can we do? What about a queen sack? Ah, the best kind of mates. Queen takes h2, king must take h2, and then the rook comes into h4. And because of these two rooks on these two files, the king has no flight squares. Ha ha ha. Aren't we clever devils? Or something like that. Yar, matey. This is a fun one. Little pawn movement here. We can do pawn to h4. And because of this white square that's taken by the queen, the king only has two potential flight squares, both of which are on the h file. Ah, boy, that king to h5 move looks good. Queen h8, and then he can just slip right on by. So that doesn't look great. Ah, but what if we push the other way with the other pawn? F pawn to f4. King can't go to these two squares because of the queen. So f5 and g4 are out of question. He can't go to h4. He will have to go to h5, and then the queen can move over. And then the king has 0. he has flight squares. Fuck. Cock. Why is it so hard? And we have to, if we want this to be a mate in 2, we have to ensure that this is a forced move mate, because the queen can easily drop down to d1 and ruffle our feathers, as one would say. So if that's the case, how do we force this issue? Definitely one of the pawn moves, I'm thinking. But I'm obviously miscalculating one of them, and I don't know which one. This is interesting. For instance, doing something like f4 check with a pawn. King has to move to h5. Can we just move the pawn up to g5? No, because then there's an h4 flight square as well as an h6 flight square for the king. So that's not it. Ah! I've got it. No, I don't. I was going to say I got it because I was thinking f4, check. King to h5, and then queen to h3. But king does not have to go to h5. On f4 check, king can go to h6. In which case, queen would go to h8, and that would be checkmate. I see. So there are 2 potential checkmates here after the f4 move, and we will see which one happens. So the king moved to h5. That means because of his pawn on g6, he is missing a very important flight square, and that will be checkmate. The other way it can go is he goes over here, but then he gets mated this way, which is also mate, which is great. Excellent. Wonderful puzzle. Made me think. And thinking's good, boys and girls. Thinking's good. Yeah! I'm sorry for how creepy that is. Yeah, this video, it's not good. It's gonna scare people. We got to do something, and the something here is queen to h8. Only place that the king can fly to is h7, at which point we will take that pawn. My queen and my pawn will be connected. The king will be on h7. He will be hugged on the edge, and we know what that means. That means checkmate. Neat. Okay, so king has already flown. So the question is, how do we capture him now? This could potentially be a mate into with a quieter move, seeing as how... Oh no, never mind. I was going to say seeing as how there's no direct way for the queen, for his queen, to mess us up and make us lose tempo. But just kidding, queen to h8 would definitely mess up with our tempo. So no quiet moves. It's gotta be angry moves. Yeah. So I'm thinking, let's get rid of this diagonal first. Queen to f1. King has only one flight square at this point, which would be to h4, and then we can do bishop to g5 for a check. No flight squares, because g4 is guarded by my pawn, and then we win the game, and then everybody claps for us. Yay! Yay! Yeah, let's look at this one. This one's fun. That rook on d8 would be terrible for us. So that's, I guess, important for us to learn that even in situations where it looks pretty bad for us, those are just moments where checkmates are waiting to happen. That's a very Bob Ross kind of mentality, I think, about it. I hope all of you can take that to heart. Yeah, pilgrims. Candidate move, or the move that sticks out to me, really, force move of some sort, Queen to h3, check, which would deny him. I wish this was Lichess. They're bored. You can like right click and say where they can't go and shit. Anyway, queen to h3, king must move. The flight squares he has are g1 and g1 because the knight is guarding f3 and I didn't see it until now. So if he goes to g1, then if that's his only square that he can go to, then after that, knight to f3 check would be actually a checkmate because no flight squares, he's kind of fucked. Neat. 11 out of 11. Ain't that cool? What did he just take from me? Oh, he took my rook. Which makes me feel more like a badass when I win this, I guess. So in this situation, if I move the queen to h6, he can't fly to f8, meaning he has to fly to f8, h8. I know my letters. I'm a big boy. So I'll have to fly to h8, at which point we can hug him to death. And I'm sure there's a name for this mate, but I just don't know the name of it. I just don't. I'm sorry. This is mate in 2. This knight, he looks like he's in a dangerous position. Oh, what do I do? What do I do? No. That's probably the worst voice I've done. Okay, cool. Let's see here. So, I mean, rook could take g7. That would be a check. But then the king can take that knight. And then we can move our pawn up, defended by our rook. But the h-pawn isn't defended, so the king can just take that. At which point, that's 2 moves, and we've still lost. Alternatively, the rook could just take g4 as well. So that ain't great. So how do we get a check? How do we do this? How do we think like a winner? I don't know. Let's think about that rook takes g7 more. Rook takes g7. King can fly to f square or h square. King takes knight on h5. Then rook just goes to g5 actually. And then the king can't go anywhere. Alright, so that's bad. Let's not do that. Rook takes pawn on g7. We know h5 is bad, so what about king to f5? And then if rook goes here, now there's a flight square up to... Oh, no, there's no flight square because of the knight. Oh. So, yeah. This was the right answer. And the other one that we saw was... Boop, boop. And he's still trapped. That is a beautiful mate. Maybe my concepts of beauty are weird and abstract and actually just dependent on my mood. Maybe that's how all of life is. Maybe life is meaningless. I don't know. This is a little weird. I apologize for that. So, yeah. Pawn to g4. That looks fun. Pawn to g4 looks fun. No flight squares on the g file. He either has to go to h6 or h4. And if that's the case, what's afterwards? If he goes to h6, there's knight to f5, attacking his only flight square. And, yeah, that would be checkmate. Because he can't take that knight with the pawn, because it's a pin. We know pins. Yay! Again, pawn to g4. What if he flies south, though? What if he goes to h4? What do we have for that? Nothing. We're fucked. No, just kidding. We have g3. And he would have no flight squares as well. Right? Pawn to g4, check. h4, king to h4, g5 and h5 are defended or attacked or controlled, as the best term I guess would be, by the pawns on f4 and g4. Pawn on g4 defended by the bishop. Pawn moves up to g3 and the king would still be in checkmate. Neat! And we get to see the one with the pin. That's pretty cool. Let's look at the one with the pawn. Okay, there we go. Alright, there's no place for the king to go. I'm gonna, whatever fan base I had at the beginning of this video, it's gone now. It's gone. I'm just a lonely man on Valentine's Day without anybody. Also, it's not Valentine's Day, by the way. This is February 12th, so there's that as well. I don't know. Is that good or bad? So, two moves that I see. Knight to b2. Knight takes pawn, check. King has only two places it can go. It can either go... No, actually, it just has one place it can go. It can go to b3. At which point do we have something? Do we have something that we can use? Like queen to b5, checking the king while defending the knight? No, because he can fly to b3 or c3, and also he can block with the queen, so that's not it. Here's the other idea. Queen to a3 check. King only has one place he can go again. King would go to b5. And then I've stopped because I have nothing. My brain is blown. Queen to a3 check. King to b5. And then I just do a double attack, and that would be so sweet, and take the queen, but I wouldn't be in position to take this pawn, so that's bad. That's bad. I guess we should go back to the original move. Oh, actually, there's another one we didn't think of. There's another move that the knight can make, which is knight to b6 check. Knight to b6 check, again, only has one potential flight square, and that would be for king to b3. So knight b6 check, king b3. Then I have fucking nothing. I still have nothing. So let's go back to the original one. Knight b4 check, king b3. Oh, I'm sorry. Good God. We can do queen a3, but we can also do queen a5. And that is probably the promising line because we've tried all the other ones. So let's try queen a5 check. What is the flight square? Good God. It's b3 again. What do we do then? Ugh. Thinking hurts. I can't deal with this anymore. Queen a5, king b3. Then we do queen to b5 check. He has a2 and he has c3 as flight squares, however, so that doesn't look great. This is hard. Chess is hard. I don't like it. Let's keep in mind that currently the king is very restricted by my queen, and his only flight square right now is b3. If there was some way to keep that restriction and move my knight into a position where it not only attacks the king and b3, that would be the best. However, if we look at where that position would be, it would be exactly where the queen is right now. So that's not so good, as my Uncle Squirrely would say. Another check that we have that we can do is queen to a7. But there are like a lot of flight squares, and I feel like there are plenty that are good. So I don't think that's it. Okay, let's look at knight b6 again. Knight b6, king b3. And I don't see it. I don't see it. So I don't think that's it. Ah. Queen a5 seems very, very promising, but I'm not sure what I do after king b3. Queen a5 check. King b3. I see. I see it now, boys and girls, and it's thanks to this pawn that I've moved to b2. Indeed, this is the only thing that makes all of this work completely. So, you know how I was talking about it. You know how I was talking about my wish for the knight to be on b4, c5, c5, so that it could attack the king and the flight square? Well, we're going to use that motif. We're first going to shift this trap that the queen has on the king. Now his only flight square will be c4. Oh God, help me, Lord. But now we can move the king or the knight to a square where it will both be attacking the king and controlling the flight square. And this is a very, very pretty mate. Oh my gosh, the words, they don't come, and somebody's pinging me on Steam. Leave me alone. I'm a terrible person. Ugh. Ugh. So let's look at this one. This one looks pretty easy by the fact that there's a knight, a queen, and a rook all in the same file, just waiting to get at that king. First thought that I have is knight to f6 comes with the check. Bishop takes? No prob. Then there's queen to h7. No flight squares for the king, no way to block. King is in trouble. So let's look at an alternative. Knight to f6, and then the king has to move. No, that's not even possible. So the bishop has to take, at which point that's a checkmate. 16 out of 16. And I'm just fucking going crazy here. Just crazy. Okay. Well, this is cool. This diagonal already controlled by our bishop. That's fucking sweet. Yeah, this diagonal, very unguarded. Queen can take. The only move they have would be to block with a rook. No defenders for that rook. Queen takes that. No flight squares for the king. That's checkmate. 17 out of 17, boys and girls. Is that good? Is that bad? I don't know. I don't even know where the king is. Ah, here we go. Okay. So in this situation, we have a king and a pawn and a discovered attack potentially. We move the pawn up one, turn it into a whatever. I mean, we'd probably want to turn it into something useful. Like, so there are two things we can change it to that might be good. Or three things, I guess. One is queen. That gets rid of the first rank, so the king has to step into uh, the third rank on G3. Uh, or we can change to the knight, at which point the king is in two checks, a double check or double attack, and so the king has to move. The rook can't just take because he's still, attacky, and the king would have to move. Well, he could move to h1, and in fact, h1 and g1 would be his only moves. But that's not what we want to do. Sometimes it would be. That would be sweet. I would love a promotion knight made in two, but in this case, it's just the queen. Discovered check. Oh, but the rook can block. Okay, maybe that queen move is wrong then. Interesting. Because the idea was this. Wait. Oh my gosh, that's how tired I am. Oh, boys and girls, I just tried to mate my own king. This is absolutely the most awful, embarrassing thing that has happened to me today. Oh my god, what color am I even? Come on! And this is why I'm a fucking 1500 on Lichess and a 1000 OTB. Oh my god, that's amazing. Holy fuck, I'm dumb as dicks. Okay, so we're black in this situation. Let's look at the color. Oh god, no. No, this is my 11th episode. No. This is the biggest blunder I've done so far. Oh, I can't wait for somebody to find this in the archives one day. Oh, fuck. Okay. Okay. So we're black in this situation, which which means we have bishop to e5. And the king only has one flight square because we control his first rank with our fucking rook. And yeah, g2 is controlled by our pawn on f3. So he has to move to h3, and he's lost all flight squares, and we move our knight, our rook to h1. That's a check. There's no way to defend against it, and boom, boom, boom. No blocking, no diversions, no distractions. Oh, fuck. What are we on? 18 out of 18? Oh, fuck me. Jesus. God damn it. Okay. Alright, what do we have? Come on, give it to me. Okay, so if we move our pawn here to h3, that's a check. There are no flight squares, so the king has to do something on the pawn. The only way to take care of it is for the rook to come here and take care of it. So rook takes. But that stops him from guarding white's first rank, at which point we'll do rook to g1, and the king will have no flight squares still, and he will be checkmated. Oh, thank you very much. 19 out of 19. This is the last one, boys and girls. This is the last one for me to frickin' embarrass myself with. This is a nice one. I like this one. It goes like this. Rook takes a3, check. No flight squares for the king. Bishop must take. At which point, queen to b1 check. No flight squares. Defended by the bishop. And we win the game. Well, these games are a lot easier to do when you know what color you are, for God's sake. And when you don't try to mate your own king. So that's what we learned today. Today's lesson, boys and girls, is don't try to mate your own fucking king. Hey! And for anybody who's watching that takes offense to me calling them boys and girls, there's a dislike button right next to the like button. Smash it. Smash that dislike button. Unsubscribe. See if I give a fuck. I don't. I actually really don't. But yeah, hope you guys really enjoyed this. If you did, let me know down in the comments. Don't like it, don't subscribe it. Just let me know in the comments. I like to read things. Nobody's watching this. Why the fuck am I even saying this? Hope you guys have a good night, and yeah, video 12. I promise to be less stupid. Actually, I can't promise that. Hopefully it will still be entertaining, I guess, and hopefully we'll keep on learning something. Let's be serious for a moment. The mates, they were good. It felt good to practice something that was a little more easy today than the pins. Not that the pins were too hard. That having said that, I feel like maybe mate in ones and mate in twos separately was a little too easy. I think if we're going to do any kind of mate practice again, we'll do mate in ones and twos together next time, and I think that will be a good challenge for me. For next time, however, we're going back to the pins. We're doing 20 puzzles. It's going to be a hilarious time where I try to mate my own goddamn king. I'll see you guys later.